Alright guys, we're here for a quick Canadian women's update. There have been a lot of things that have happened over the last couple of weeks, and I have just been late to everything. The Easter weekend happened, and instead of having that time I normally would have, is the AFC Toronto play their inaugural match, where they lost to Montreal. The next day, I went to a wedding, and then the day after that, we had Easter with the family, so I've been trying to recover. You've been seeing the content kind of slow down a bit, but we're going to get back here. So let's talk about what's going on the women's side. Three major things to talk about for the Canadian women's national team. Let's start with the first one. Casey Stoney has added 3 new faces to her coaching staff. You have Natalie Henderson, Neil Wood, and Ian Wilcock have been named to the team, to their technical staff. For the most part, coming from different spaces. So you have Natalie Henderson, who's coming from Newcastle. So she's had experience with the U17s, which could be interesting. I think that could be a name that could be floating around to take over the U17s now, especially with no more Emma Humphreys on the women's side. This could be a name that possibly could take over the U17s. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. Neil Wood has been part of the national team program. They were involved with the Paris Olympics as well. They've been in, as well as they've managed in the English Football League in 2022 and 2023 in Salford City. So they come with some leadership experience and some experience behind the bench there. And then Ian Wilcock, who was someone who she worked with as a goalkeeping coach back when she was at Manchester United. So bringing players that she's familiar with, but then also bringing coaches that could maybe take over. So I think that's interesting on multiple levels. I think that Natalie Henderson is definitely a name we'll watch for the U17s. That's possibly a name that will get involved with the U17s. I think that might be the perfect swing in. I think Sydney Tai at the U20s has been doing a great job. I don't think you need to switch that unless maybe you're thinking of a change in philosophy. But I think Tai is proven to be versatile enough. So Natalie Henderson, a great name to keep an eye on for in terms of the U17s. But those are 3 coaching staffs that she's adding to it, and you've seen that with even with Priestman. Jasmine Mander was with the U15s, Humphreys was with the U17s, Tai, and sometimes they come up. So I think Henderson to me is the most interesting one to take a look at in terms of what she could mean for the program there. Speaking of the Canadian women's national team, we have Desi Scott announcing her retirement from international play, and she's going to be honored as Canada plays Haiti. It was rumored. Shout out to our Twitter followers and our Twitter folks who've been suggesting and confirming all this for us. Desi Scott is retiring. The games are going to be played in Winnipeg and Montreal against Haiti. So those are our next 2 friendlies for Canada, May the 31st and then June the 3rd, which is an interesting lineup of games because if you look at all the national teams, then you go from there. Then a few days later, you have the Canadian Shield happening in Toronto, and then a few days after that, then you have the Gold Cup. So the end of May, running all the way through the end of June, you're going to be looking at games for the Canadian senior teams playing, not to mention other aspects and forces that'll come with it. So I'm very much excited for this. Also, a send off for one of the staples of this national team, the Destroyer, her working at midfield. They've finally been able to find some solutions there. The national team have with the emergence of Emma Reagan, with Quinn, even Asimia Wujo when she's healthy. But Desi Scott capping her 14-year career with a send-off in Winnipeg, I think is more than deserved for her. The last thing is Canada also announced its women's futsal roster. Now they had just decided to establish a futsal roster. It is a very interesting fascination. Futsal is something interesting. Even I've been watching a little bit more of the CAF WAFCON futsal competition. So African futsal, Morocco again doing Morocco things. But let's go through some of the names here. Again, it is based out of, I believe it is based out of Quebec, the province. If I've messed up your name, and I'm sorry that my French kicks in at the wrong times. Let's try this again. Esther Brassard, Stephanie Anne Dadaï, Cynthia Gaspard-Frère, Joelle Gosselin, Shayla He, Erica Hindmark, Jade Humfan, Maud Lagacé, Kira Mellenhorst, Leah Palacio, Erica Pion, Sadie Sider, Jaden Steinhauer, and Sophie Therrien. So those are going to be the players on the Canadian futsal team working to qualify for the World Futsal FIFA World Cup happening in the Philippines in 2025. So they're going to be playing in the qualifiers for CONCACAF, which will happen later this year. The World Cup is happening in November 21st to December the 7th, which means qualifiers will take place from the April 28th all the way through to, I believe, May the 4th. So it's starting next week. So guys, keep your eyes peeled out for that on CONCACAF. All of that happening while we have talk of friendlies, and also later today, depending when you're watching this, Vancouver Whitecaps have already played the Inter Miami. So yeah, if they won, or oh no, they lost. But yeah, those are some of your updates. I apologize for butchering some of your names. It was not the intent, but here we are. And as always, I'm gonna stop talking right here.